In the bottom left side for this playoff match, we are looking at the main base of the Mexican Zerg. He's been gone for a little while. He's back. He won on this map in the best of 3 they had in the group stage. It is Cham.
And in the bottom right-hand side, it is for Team Liquid, the Brazilian man and powerhouse, Kelazhur. That's very cool. I didn't know that Diego needed glasses, and yeah, I agree with his and your assessment. I think, you know, if it is that you just got the glasses, it's probably best to stick to what you know, just for convenience sake, right? You don't want the thought of like new processing and like thinking about like how things look now and like, whoa, that was cool, and like I hadn't noticed that detail before, or anything that would distract you from your regular pattern.
Yeah, and it just feels different, right? Like, you get used to it very quickly, but the first few days you're gonna be like, man, there's something on my nose. There's something on my nose. There's something touching my ears. He's also wearing a big headset. I don't know if that would be annoying or not, but it definitely makes sense that for now he just plays the way that he has been playing. We assume that his eyesight is not that bad. You know, I actually have glasses too, and I always wear contacts. That's why my eyes are red, not for other reasons, Twitch yet. I have hard contacts, and I do have glasses, and they work if I just sit really still. And I look at a screen, they work. If I want to read a book, it works. But I actually cannot play StarCraft with them for the life of me. Because at the edge of the screen, when I keep moving my head, everything keeps turning and bending in very weird ways. Like, it's legit impossible for me to play with glasses. I would, but
that's
it's because one eye is heavy minus, one eye is heavy plus, and it just makes for very weird dynamic. Anyway, enough about my glasses and my terrible eyesight. Play too many games of Warcraft 3 in the dark, cats. Don't do that. Let's talk about TVZ.
Yeah, I think I need a new prescription as well. But here is the first Reaper, and it's gonna look for a circling. Not gonna find it. Good micro here from Cham so far, only making the 4 lanes, which is kind of trademark Europe and America for the most part. Does get a circling here, Kelazhur.
Yeah. Now, obviously not a big deal, but momentum is very real in StarCraft 2. And as a Terran, you're always happy when you pick up a kill. Ideally, of course, you want the drone. The drone is the jackpot. This already gives us flashbacks to what happened the last time they played on Blackburn. And honestly, that was one of the highlights of that entire series, even though we had a very funny game afterwards. But Diego's Reaper SCV dance was insane. He killed the drone, he delayed the second drone, kept knocking the creep. He truly got the maximum delay. And it seems that Cham has learned from it, and he's taking life very serious this time around, because he's bringing 2 queens. That's not what he did in the past. That grenade unfortunately was on the wrong side, so that drone was safe, and Diego's just gonna do his thing. Almost ends up losing the Reaper, but much better start for Cham. This is all a lot cleaner.
Yeah, a lot cleaner indeed. Cool moves from Kelazhur regardless, like going into the natural base, because you know, there's only gonna be a maximum of 3 queens at that point in time. The 4th one does spawn now, and there is 4 available, but you know, like there could have been just 1 queen in the main, and there could have been an opening for the Reaper to go after drones if both queens are at the 3rd base. So well done. I also really like that strategy on this map in particular, and not so much more on any other map, simply because you'd never want the triangle 3rd, whereas on every other map as a Zerg player, you kind of have the option between taking 1/3 or the other, and they're kind of the same. On this one, you definitely don't want the triangle because it's a little bit too close to your Terran opponent.
Yeah, Marine tank would just be an absolute nightmare to deal with, especially with the slow zones, right? It's like, here come the roaches through a slow zone. You're like, all right, that is very painful. Cham makes 8 roaches. This is the same thing as he did against Special, or at least it's very, very similar. And he got himself in such a tremendous position in that game, but at one point kind of decided to base trade with Roach Hydra, which was honestly a bit of a painful decision, because there were more ways for Cham to win that game than there were to lose, and it was almost harder to lose it as well. He had such a good start. I'm sure that Diego's done his homework though, so he is going to check and see if there are roaches in the center of the map. Really nice. This is obvious that Kelazhur has done the homework. He's taking a look at that game that Cham played against Special, and he's like, all right, Special didn't see those roaches in the center of the map, but just in case you're doing it again, I do want to see them. And that's why this Banshee is now already in the right spot, because he knew it was coming. Diego came prepared.
Yeah, and this is classic Cham, and even in the last season against Kelazhur on this map, this is the strategy that he employed to get to the other side of the map. And I mean, if you're gonna let this map through, we were talking about it in, you know, with Wardy earlier, and Cham is likely to get Blackburn through. The problem is that it's so predictable that you're gonna go roaches, because you are like what you would call Roddy a roachy boy, and on top of that, it's Blackburn, right? You have to cross the map really. It's a really short rush distance. by ground, roaches are just kind of the obvious choice on this map, and Kelazhur hyper prepared, scouting the roaches and going for a Banshee opening.
Like going roaches obviously is one thing, but this is a pretty big investment because he makes 10 roaches relatively early. You can obviously do that just to throw the rhythm off a little bit of your opponent and kind of try to dictate the pace of the game. But there's also a way to play roaches, even if it's predictable, with a much stronger economy behind it. But Cham doesn't have that ultra strong economy now because that was a very sizable investment. But one thing that we can always say about Cham, even in the games where sometimes some of the moves are a bit silly and sometimes the defense can look questionable, the man is hella good at building a lot of drones. Because even when he built all those roaches, he's still at 62 workers at the moment.
Yes, sir. Unfortunate timing there for Cham, and a lot of that has to do with the larva as well, right? Because Zerglings are much more heavier in larva, so you make the Zerglings and they're a little bit less costly perhaps than the roaches, but larva-wise, it does take a little bit more to make Zerglings, so you can drone up a little bit more freely here, as Kelazhur did delay the goal just for 1 second and now is loaded up and looking for a double drop onto the main of Cham.
And this is where it's going to be really hard for the Zerg to have roaches in the right position. Hopefully Overlords can give him a little bit of a heads up so he can start spreading the units correctly. And this looks all right. We're looking at 7 roaches. The Marines would win the fight if all 60 Marines are unloaded. They stim and they engage. But if you would drop the Marines one by one, they won't win the fight. The Hellions, though, they do have some potential. They get a couple of sweet shots off immediately. Could have been a lot worse. I think this is acceptable damage so far on the side of Cham.
Yeah, and oddly enough, those Marines in the main would have been kind of awkward, but now they are about to kick in as far as the 1-1 and the combat shields. All of those upgrades are going to finish within a couple of seconds. So now Kelazhur really would want to engage or find something with those Marines. Wow. Whereas a few seconds ago, if he had found the space to drop in the main, they would have been missing those crucial upgrades. Kelazhur, however, is going to just choose to go back in spite of that and maybe regroup with the rest of his army for a bigger push.
And if you're wondering what I'm wowing about, look at Diego's confidence. He's building a 4th command center on location at the gold. He's just like, Cham, you're playing roaches, you like to play defensive as well. Seen a couple of games where you don't make it past the halfway mark. Why would I even play it safe? Why would I build this CC elsewhere? I'm just going to build it on location because it's unlikely a bunch of roaches are going to run to my side of the map. And even if they do, I can probably pick them off. Now, link speed is fortunately done, so we do have quite a few links, but it's still going to be hard to engage these tanks, though. I'm not sure. There's a couple Hellions in the mix, so Cham, for now, is just going to run past the army, but eventually we have to do something about these Banshees, don't we, Guts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Cham has the right idea here, just avoiding the fight, and now it's going to look to collapse onto the Marines, who turn around for a second there and take a few unnecessary losses. And Kelazhur not really focus firing with the tanks is going to mean that a lot of those Marines will get shot at from the tanks. And Cham will end up cleaning after kind of like just losing his base, unfortunately for him. But, you know, kind of fakes aggression, then pulls back and does manage to clear out Kelazhur's position.
Yeah, that was a nice move, but I don't like the fact that he's chasing those 2 medevacs to the top left side. I actually felt at this point his army supply was so much bigger that I really wouldn't have hated just to run to the other side of the map, let the Banshees shoot away. It is what it is. It's kind of like a CVZ where they have a couple Muras, but the 3rd was wide open at one point of Kelazhur, and obviously the 4th was built on location. I kind of feel like now we just let go of a 50 army supply advantage, and we didn't get anything out of it. Maybe a stronger follow-up push, but then the Terran army is going to get a lot bigger as well, and the tank count is going to rise real quick again.
Yeah, it was a nice reset onto the tank count, and I'm with you. I think that if Cham had, you know, the god vision, I guess, that we have, he probably would have gone for that move. It is a difficult move to make because those Ravagers are so expensive, and the Banshees do kill them relatively fast. But here comes Cham regardless, so he is going for the move that you were proposing just a little bit later. Now Kelazhur does have a little bit more to work with, but Cham does bring huge numbers here, and a couple of those siege tanks don't really get to siege. The Banelings are not connecting, however, with the bio, but with only 4 medevacs, it looks like it's gonna be enough for Kelazhur to deflect this and possibly just close out the game.
Yeah, sick hold by Diego. That definitely wasn't easy because it was a lot of Zerg. Cham had a tiny bit of a misclick at one point. He actually shot at the depot and moved his entire army towards the depot. But I'll be honest, I don't think that really would have made the difference. I think if he goes after that fight, he goes immediately. Actually really hard to hold for Kelazhur. Will probably stabilize on 2 bases, but temporarily forced to evacuate the 3rd, has to give up the 4th base as well for a split moment. And obviously with that many Ravages, we could actually kill orbitals, even if we don't have any proper anti-air. With that many Ravages, I think he could have killed an orbital. But just chasing those 2 medevacs a little bit longer towards the top left side gave Diego the 2 extra tanks and 20 extra Marines.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. And I think that if there was a lair available, I'm not sure that there was, but if there was, maybe you could just morph an Overlord into a Dropper Lord, load up 4 queens, and maybe that's your way to deal with the Banshees. Because if you're just gonna do that move, then you really are kind of all in. So you could just inject on the way out and really commit to it. But and I would have liked that, yeah, because he cleared so much army. That was definitely where the brunt of his advantage lied.
Yeah.
But not capitalizing well enough this time around, and Kelazhur will take game number 1.
Was there really no lair? I mean,
I'm not sure. I'm saying
no, there must have been. I saw +2 armor was on the way. No, or am I crazy?
Then there was a lair. Then that could have been a strong option.
Yeah. I'm like 99. He has roach speed too.
Yeah.
So obviously you need a lair for that.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, no, there was definitely a lair. I was like, what, did I miss that? Like, I was like 99% sure there was one, but then I wasn't totally sure. I was like, well, didn't see how.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure just because I only saw Roach Ravager at the very end there, and yeah, I thought maybe there wasn't a lair, because if there was, I think that would have been a good move, right? So
we need obviously the lair, otherwise the roaches are slow, and that would have definitely stood out. Then we'd be like, well,
been bad,
yeah, and that's very underwhelming. Overall, there was a little opportunity there for Cham. Unfortunately, didn't quite work.
And there was Baneling speed as well, so yeah, there was
definitely
a lair.
Yeah, they were rolling. We figured it out, guys. It took us a little while, but
yeah.
Long days, long week of StarCraft 2, and you have another long week ahead of you, don't you, Ken?
Oh yeah, long week.
Are you back on Tuesday?
I think so. Tuesday is the 24th. Yes, I'll be back on Tuesday.
Sick. I'll be watching on my phone, playing some cards, watching you guys. Hopefully, I'll be able to watch a lot of the broadcast. That would be a good sign. So, all right. Seems like Cham has fixed his little screen issue, so we can go ahead and hop into game 2 on Hardwire. In the top right side, we're looking at the main base of the man who I do think had a little opportunity after he lost the gold. Just go ahead, grab everything you have and send it. But he wanted to wait for some key upgrades to kick in. I think that gave his opponent too much time to get ready. Let's see if game 2 has more in store for us. And for him, it's Cham.
And in the middle of the map, it is the red Terran player going for a double proxy racks. Kelazhur.
This is funny. Before we're going to talk about this, I was actually going to ask you something in the previous game, but then I couldn't really finish it because something else was happening. Overlord turns around could be big.
What?
I was wondering, do you think it would be nice for Kelazhur to try to get a quick and easy 3-0 as the Overlord does see the barracks?
Wow.
But can you still send drones? I don't know. Is he going to send drones? Sends one.
He's going to send, yeah. He's sending them. That was a little bit of a slow reaction, though. That could make the difference.
Yeah, let's see. I do think he's going to be able to get a small delay on the second barracks. It depends a little bit on... Oh, that's annoying. Oh, of course, the SCV has to go there. Okay, now it's going to be a little bit more exposed. Diego's going to pray to the RNG gods. Nope, he just convinced that he can finish it up, and he is correct. At least getting a lot of damage on the SCV is nice, though. Makes it harder for the Terran to build bunkers.
Yeah, but that is 3 drones worth of mining that is not happening on the side of Cham, and you really want all of that mining if available, right? So I think I'm with you. I think that at that point, he should have pulled either right away or not at all. And yeah, that Overlord does get kind of lucky with the scout, so that's still going to be nice for Cham in the sense that he does get to save up larva, so he's going to be able to make 8 links all at once, as well as 2 queens, rather than over-droning, for example. And he will stand a decent chance to hold this without losing the hatchery, as it's just 2 barracks.
Yeah, but now we're going to have to micro this correctly. We definitely don't want to see these bunkers finish up. Here we go. Lings and drones. We're going to start nibbling on the SCV immediately. Can we surround a couple of the Marines? That'd be very big. Marine micro so far. Very good, though. Oh, my goodness. That's actually very good. Sure, the SCVs went down, but we did lose 3 drones there immediately.
Yeah, and this is cool by Kelazhur. I don't think that he is bringing any SCVs whatsoever to finish these bunkers. He just wants kind of the sheltering from the bunkers to micro the Marines away from them and in between the cracks. So he will cancel the bunkers, of course, as they... Oh, no cancel!
Yeah, that's big.
That's huge.
100 minerals down the drain there does cancel the second one. It was actually looking not even too bad for Kelazhur, even though his CC was always going to be a lot later. But I was like, maybe if the marine count gets high enough, we can force out a few more Zerglings there. But as soon as the queen popped, it looked a little bit more dire, and yeah, they're not canceling the bunkers. Actually kind of bad. Cham is going to follow this up with a Roach Warren. And I'm just a little bit confused about like how he takes his gases so early. But by the time this Roach Warren is done, he's already going to have so much gas. And I feel like he's putting himself in a place where he wants to be very aggressive again early on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think he wants to punish something here. He's going to start the Link speed. So it's going to be a Roach attack with a Link follow-up. And I don't think that Cham is looking to drone up that much more. As I say that he has 3 more on the way. But I mean, if he makes... Oh, it's gonna get scouted. So now it's kind of like all caution to the wind, right? Like Cham can kind of play mind games from here and just pretend that he is all-inning. But I think ideally he had to kind of just commit to this.
I had the feeling that Link Speed was a fake, where he's like, I want the barracks to scout Link Speed, and then I'm gonna surprise my opponent with roaches. But now they have already been revealed. Cham is making 5-6 roaches now very early on. But Kelazhur is gonna have quite some time to get ready for it. Does not have a tech lab on that starport yet though, so he can't even start his Banshee. Now we start Link Speed again. Cat, explain.
Yeah. I mean, that was very weird, right? Like, I think when he started Link Speed earlier, he wanted Link Speed. Because if he was gonna fake it, he could have waited for the barracks to actually be in range and then snuck out a couple of drones with the Link Speed money, right? Because it costs 100 minerals still. So I think this is just kind of indecision from Cham at this point, because it is the most awkward thing when you're already in a strange position and then your Roach Warren gets scouted. That's just such a huge investment, right? It's $200 cash, and if you don't use it offensively, then you're just kind of super far behind.
Yeah, I'm very confused. I thought it was like gonna be as a fake, and I was like, okay, I can get behind it. He doesn't want to get Link Speed, but then he starts it again later on. I guess now it's a fake, as in like I canceled Link Speed, but I'm still gonna get Link Speed. All right. Because Kelazhur, by the time at one point, I think that spawning pool wasn't wiggling anymore. But we do have 4 Hellions in the main base. The slow Roach is out of position. We need an Evo. We need an Evo. There is no Evo.
Oh man.
Link Speed not done yet because we canceled it, and this is pure pain. Episode number, I don't know how many. Oh, what a lovely position there for the Hellions. This is kind of game-ending damage, man. Cham is now down 9 workers, and there's no way for him to be aggressive. He does not have a lair. What is happening?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just described. That was game-ending damage, because even though not much seems to have happened and Cham did repel the early aggression from Kelazhur, it was not cheap. He made a lot of units, then he committed to the Roach Warren, he made a lot of roaches, and despite all of that, he takes damage from a very cheap set of harassment that wasn't even dealt with. The Hellions are still alive, so yeah, it's...
Yep, they can come back for more, and Diego trying to get a little bit fancy there, trying to make the medevac shoot the flames, and going for the hot pickups. That one did not work out, so Cham does catch a little break there. Has double Evo on the way, and is just going to try to crank out as many drones as possible, but I am not loving this spot for him at all. One Queen is taking a fight against the Banshee. Not a good fight to take. Reinforcements have arrived, though. The transfuse is good, and that worked out for Cham. Well done.
That does work out for Cham, who has now drawn up past Kelazhur up all the way up to 50. But Kelazhur in a wonderful position. Cham now starting 1-1 as well as his lair. Kelazhur, however, already finished his 3rd base and has 3 barracks worth of production. So he is in the position that he wants to be in, adding an extra 2 barracks, and with double eBay about to be booted up as well.
Diego's even going to repair the Hellions. You don't see that very often. I guess he's like, well, if I've got 3 left over, I may as well heal them up and try to sneak into the main base one more time and see if I can get a few more good shots off. I'm looking for a little bit of a silver lining, light at the end of the tunnel. I guess roaches are cheap. We can make a lot of them. 1-1 roaches are quite feisty. And obviously, if Kelazhur, I think one mistake that Diego makes every now and then is that sometimes he gets a bit too flashy, where it's not even that he's dropping in too many locations at once, but he splits up his army in 3 or even 4 different locations, and then it's all kind of okay besides the main fight, and that's where he gets ruffle stomped, and then things can snowball out of control. So maybe that's something that Cham has to hope for, but other than that, I don't really know, man.
It's going to be extremely difficult, and multitasking against roaches and without Muta or even Zerglings, and Banelings as the base of the Zerg army, it's a lot harder to follow those medevacs, right? So
Yeah.
Kelazhur, in a way, is playing to his strengths. And we'll see if he's able to capitalize here, as he's going to drop right outside of creep. Just look to probably scan and clear some creep on the way to deny Cham's 4th base.
This army of Cham is going to have a really hard time with this amount of Marines, man. The upgrades are not done on either side, but there are so many Marines. There's triple medevac healing power as well. And the roaches just get absolutely obliterated. Right now they have +1 armor, but that is a little bit late. +1 attacks is going to finish up as well. This hatchery needs to get cancelled. Please cancel it, and he does. But it's still a big loss.
Yeah, that's so sad because it was so ridiculously close. Only 1 medevac full of Marines remains, and on the other side, something like 5 roaches. I think 1 or 2 more roaches on the side of Cham would have been able to push that back. But as it stands, he had those, 1 or 2 roaches too few, which means his hatchery will have to be cancelled and loses a little bit of terrain as well in the shape of just a creep getting cleared. Kelazhur is going to continue on with the aggression as he loads an extra 2 medevacs.
Yep, he's paying attention to the medevac on the right side as well. Does fire a +2 now. He was a little bit later on that. Yeah, Kelazhur is just flying in this game. Cham is creating a lot of map vision on his side of the map, at least, and that is kind of cool. And after we drop the infestation pit, maybe we can hope for some sweet wombo combo, fungal growth, corrosive bow. It's one of the few ways that roaches could make a quote-unquote comeback. And if you guys wondering why we make it seem like Cham is so far behind, while the supplies may seem kind of even, they're not supposed to be even. The roach player is supposed to be 35, 40 supply up. And even then, it's anybody's game, right? It's always hard to end games with roaches. When the supplies favor the Terran and all that the Zerg has is roaches and maybe a couple of Ravages, it is just looking pretty horrendous for the Zerg.
Yeah, exactly. Roaches are very cheap for their supply, and that, they used to be 1 supply. Fun fact for those of you who weren't around 12 years ago. So imagine that if they were 1 supply right now, we would have a good, with a 7 spawning, we would have like 20 less supply at least for the Zerg.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit more realistic to what the state of the game is. Cham, however, is getting to a very fast hive. And with those infestors, like you were saying, Roddy, there is a glimmer of hope, right? Like the problem is going to be the huge amount of tanks and the extra amount of tech that Kelazhur has been producing behind this that we really haven't gotten to see too much of.
This is kind of what I meant, by the way, earlier. Where like Kelazhur was dropping now, he's dropping in the center of the map. He has a little drop in the main base that got kind of cleaned up. He has a Liberator. But can we just take a look at the arm, the natural of Kelazhur for a split second? Like, imagine if this army was on the other side of the map right now, together with all the units that are currently dropping left, right, and center. How on earth is Cham supposed to stop that? Like, he never would. It's impossible. So I feel that maybe Kelazhur is giving Cham a tiny chance here to make it up to Hive and maybe get a couple of these Vipers out. Even then, I don't love Cham's position, but if this monstrous army was actually pushing with those other forces, there's nothing that Cham could do about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're going to see that tested right now, and I think Kelazhur still has a very strong position. I think that it's okay for him to have gathered enough tanks and enough army that it's not going to be easily dislodged, because roaches in small numbers can actually fight really, really well against a bio tank, and especially Marines before there's enough Marauders out or before there's enough tanks out. You really want a lot of buffer against these units, and once you're maxed, I mean, the roaches and their supply inefficiency is really gonna hinder the Zerg's chances here. So Kelazhur in a prime position to close out the game right now.
Yeah, and it's sad to make it seem like it is so over. When Cham is obviously maxed out, he has minerals in the bank, he's even got 3-3 upgrades, but he is just not going to win the straight up fight. His army is worse. So he's going to try to create some chaos, and I don't hate it. I don't know if it's going to work, but I kind of like it. A little bit of chaos, making it harder, especially because Kelazhur took a very defensive position on the other side of the map. Big fungals, big corrosive balls. Not bad at all.
That was actually massive. I mean, those fungals might have just made it so that Cham can hold on the other side of the map. Those corrosive vials landed onto all of the bio units of Kelazhur, and those tanks without the buffer, they are not nearly as scary. Those are tanks that can get cleared now. If Kelazhur is not careful, he's gonna have to space them properly to not get them all biled at once. The fungal actually connects onto the tanks, but the tanks weren't going anywhere anyway. So if that fungal had connected onto the bio instead, I think that Cham would have gotten back into this game as it stands. It's still Kelazhur with a very strong position, but let's see if Cham can break through.
Bio is a little low in HP, but even low HP Bio deals so much damage against Roach Ravager, especially if they're backed up by 5 tanks. It feels that Cham was kind of close to breaking him here and then also killing 20 plus SCVs on the other side of the map, and that would have been very promising. Unfortunately, it just seemed like there was 1 or 2 tanks too many defensively at home, because it wasn't just a couple of Roaches counterattacking, it was a solid 20 plus. Cham felt he found some success, so he's gonna just try it again after sacrificing the base on the left side and just trying to buy time for that Great Aspire to kick in and get a couple of Viking Broodlords out. As there are no Vikings, that is somewhat promising. But once more, if Diego would push with everything at this point, I don't think there's anything that Cham can do.
Yeah, and the other problem is the economy for Cham. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to actually afford the Broodlords. He does have a lot of minerals to work with, but unfortunately for him, only 6 larvae. So, you know, what are you going to spend minerals in? Does get the cleanup here as he does collapse with the rest of his army, and that will allow Cham to make some Broodlords actually on the other side of the map. However, Kelazhur is relentless with the aggression, and this is the important base. After he kills this one, Cham is on less than 1 base and a half, basically.
Yep, and it's not this that this is the most important base. He's already firing up the Vikings as well, and that was like the only thing that maybe could have gone wrong, that Kelazhur would not have proper anti-air, and it would be too heavy on the Marauders and the tanks and wouldn't be able to deal with the Broodlords. Now he's going to have all the time in the world to get ready for those Broodlords, and Cham just doesn't have the economy anymore to play proper late-game CVT. Down to 3 bases where your main is obviously almost dried up. Your natural is not very thick anymore, so... We had double Spire, we had 3-3 upgrades, we were getting ready for the late game, but before we were there, it was kind of taken away from us.
Yeah, a little bit sad. And Cham's gonna go across the map, and Kelazhur, I think if he had gotten surprised, like you were saying, by this, maybe he would have had to base trade with this army. But right now, he has the option to just, I mean, not even, right? Like, there's not even infestors here. That does get the best biles of his life, but it's not gonna matter. Might have been better to save those for another life, because this one's just done.
Yeah, now he's gonna try to take out the rocks because he wants to get away. Kelazhur won't let him get away. He's gonna stim forward one more time, and that's going to do it for game number 2 of the lower bracket final in the DreamHack Masters Valencia. So far, I think it's all Kelazhur, man, but I almost feel that Cham did more damage to himself this game than Kelazhur originally did, just by being so indecisive. And obviously, we talk a lot about nerfs, we talk about pressure. They are playing for a lot of prize money. Not every day that you play a little best of 5 for 1,500 bucks, but Cham's got to be a little more decisive and a little more committed to whatever he wants to do. Because after the initial hold against the Turex, that wasn't bad at all. He lost 3 drones, didn't lose the hatchery. That's okay. We can get ourselves ahead from that spot. And then he just didn't get ahead because he was like, link speed, no link speed, the roaches, back to drones, link speed again. And he just completely gives the game away almost.
Yeah, and I didn't hate the idea to be aggressive against the 2 barracks that, you know, didn't work out. I think that you can cross the map with enough roaches, enough zerglings with speed, right? And actually make an all-in be pretty strong, because your opponent's going to be pretty slow to the factory, to the starport, and to float the barracks back home to continue to produce marines. So it's definitely a good idea. The problem for Cham is that he just simply didn't account for Kelazhur floating his barracks into his main, right? And that is a thing that happens fairly often. So it's a little bit of a weird gamble to take. And once the Roach Warren gets spotted, and then the indecision that you were talking about with the link speed and no link speed and then link speed, it really cost him a little bit too much. Then he makes, like, how many roaches did he make? Like 6 or something?
Yeah, I think 6 and solid
and
5,
they
6,
did
7.
nothing, right? That's like 700, 700 resources that do nothing, plus the Roach Warren, that's another 200 resources. You know, that's 900 resources, that's 18 drones.
Yeah, and let's not forget how quickly he took his gas, and he kept on mining all that gas, right? Like, if you're talking about optimal Zerg play, if you mine gas, you have to immediately put that gas to good use and continue working with it. Now I felt like we mined a solid 300-400 gas altogether, and we didn't do anything with it. We didn't need it that quickly. Sure, later on we could spend it, but a more optimal solution is obviously first saturate all the minerals in the natural, get that mineral economy booming, and then we can take multiple gases. And that's just a way more effective way of doing it than taking a gas quickly, but honestly taking it for not a whole lot of reason.
Yeah, I think his plan was thrown off, to be fair. Like, I think that he, you know, like, he took a gamble and it didn't pay off, and then he tried to readjust, and the readjustment was definitely clunky. But yeah, let's see if he can do a little bit better, and if his gambles will pay off this time around, or maybe he doesn't need to gamble. I mean, in the mid game, he's looked pretty good. On the top left-hand side of the map, It is for Team GP. Cham.
And in the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of our Brazilian, American, Dutch Terran player representing Team Liquid. It is Kelazhur.
Yeah, I think it can be one of those things that, you know, like if it works, it looks kind of brilliant. And if it doesn't, it just looks awful. But in this case, it did nothing because, again, he couldn't execute his plan, right? Like Kelazhur just scouted him and he decided to go elsewhere. And then it just looks awful because you've done so many things to hurt yourself that, like you were saying, maybe at that point you commit anyway, just because, you know, yeah, he's seen it, but at least you'll have what you paid for rather than just hurting yourself in the process and trying to stabilize from there.
And then obviously one of the absolute worst case scenario is that you did make all those units that you didn't do anything with, and then you still take damage from the Hellion drop. And that obviously should never ever happen, because then the least amount of value you can normally get from those units that you made a bit too early that didn't pay for themselves is that you keep the drone safe against the follow-up harass. That wasn't the case at all. A lot of lost mining time and 8+ drones or so going down to those 4 Hellions. And like you said as well, didn't even clean it up. We only killed 1 out of the 4 Hellions initially. It was just unfortunately no bueno for Cham. He's really going to have to step it up if he wants to prevent the TVT Grand Finals in Latin America. I do think we all agree that that will be the most exciting final, especially after the fighting words that Kelazhur mentioned earlier this week. And yeah, the upper bracket didn't work out. But who cares about the upper bracket, cats? It is all about, this is not good for Cham. Oh, man, sending out 2 drones. But Diego's so good. SV going to the right, Reaper going to the left, kills a drone. And now Cham is going to have some issues going up the 3 bases again.
Oh, that's just nasty. I mean, a Reaper killing the drone, and like you said, the SCV doing a wonderful job of blocking as well. It's not gonna... another one. Roddy.
Yeah, I mean, perfect grenade by Kelazhur. We know how good his Reaper play is. We praise him for it. Only Clem in Europe can really rival the Reaper micro of Kelazhur. In the old days, Yutherma was an absolute Reaper god as well. Now that drone was attacking the Queen, or am I crazy? It was just following. Felt like it was attacking, but it wasn't. All right, we do finally get the drone out. We are going to be able to go up to 3 bases, but A, it's a little bit later than we wanted, and B, we lost 2 drones. That is a problem.
That is indeed a problem. The Queens are also not going to be particularly early to the inject. Instead, they're going to drop double Creep Tumor at the front, as there's 2 more Queens about to spawn now in the main and natural of Cham. So, yeah, far from ideal here of a start for the Mexican Zerg. He's going to have to find some creative ways to recover. It is a wide open 3rd base at the triangle if Kelazhur ends up taking that. And Cham has shown his proclivity to go for roaches, so maybe this is a map where roaches could work out, but yeah, it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, it is going to be rough. I mean, in this Curious Minds, we haven't even spoken about it yet, but this is one of the best Marine tank maps out there, and Kelazhur is obviously very familiar with his opponent. I don't think he's going to play a crazy greedy style where he's not going to be ready for early game aggression or early mid-game aggression. He's just going to do what he always does, and I think that Kelazhur knows, as long as he gets those 1-1 upgrades online, a bunch of Marines, a bunch of medevacs, a couple of safety tanks, he'll just take the game from there. And Cham is definitely not a bad late game player. It's just we haven't really been able to see it because he keeps kind of being dead before the late game is even there. Every time he gets a hive, we have kind of already called the game, and we haven't been wrong.
Yeah, unfortunately not. And yeah, I mean, he relies on those timings so often as well, and I mean, Kelazhur knows that they're coming, right? So his transition into the late game is usually to do something in the mid game, to be ahead in some way, shape, or form, then start adding those Vipers on top of them, layer them on top of an advantage or something of the likes. But Kelazhur has just stopped them at every point so far, and that is just rough for a Cham that's making 2 spores in the main base. Confused.
4 spores in total. Yeah, double spore. He must be expecting Hellion Banshee. I mean, the man has not scouted, has not been to the... If you take a look at the vision of Cham, Cham has not made it past the halfway point yet of this map. And I think right now he's just reading this as Hellion Banshee. Cloak Banshee, that is, but yeah, it's not happening. And those things happen if you don't check for it.
Oh, that's further rough. I mean, yeah, ideally you have an overlord to sacrifice or go for an overlord with speed and then check later or something of the sorts. But no, Kelazhur's just going for a very standard, I guess, safe way of playing here. He did open a Banshee twice in a row, to Cham's credit. So maybe Cham, thought to cut a corner and just kind of anticipate what Kelazhur has been playing for.
And there's still Hellions as well. This is going to be hard, man. There's only 15 Lings out on the map, 1 Baneling. If the Hellions and Reaper would have committed there at the same time as the Marines, and that is obviously what Kelazhur is going for. We cannot afford to lose his hatchery or lose too many queens. We only lose 1 queen, so that is good. And the hatchery does finish up. That could have been a whole lot worse for Cham, but Cham needs to spend his money. He's got 700 minerals in the bank, and we are clearly under some pressure, but we survived so far. That could have been a whole lot worse than what it turned out to be.
Yeah, the vision perimeter for Cham was really good. He had overlords everywhere, now 1 less to work with on this side of the map. And a really nice grenade there from the Reaper of Kelazhur, trying to get a little bit fancy, pushing the queen out of creep to try and take it down with the Hellions. However, the Lings do arrive. These Marines are gonna find another queen.
Yep. At least the hatchery is still alive, and that makes me happy for Cham, as he does have the 2 Evo chambers now. Does not have any of those upgrades yet. Kind of happy to see him not playing roaches here. In curious minds, I don't hate the fact that he's switching it up. He's gonna try to play some Hydra Ling Bane by the looks of it, and maybe we go into Lurkers down the line. I am a bit worried about those first big powerful pushes of Kelazhur, especially because we have creep over here at the bottom. Our 3rd base is pretty safe, but we can't lose the 4th base either, and there isn't a lot of creep to work with on that side of the map.
Yeah, and that is the rough part about this map and why you were talking about it's so good for tank pushes, right? Like this area that Kelazhur is going to right now without having to clear creep whatsoever is an excellent place for those tanks to siege up the high ground. Cham knows that, and so he's gonna try to jump the army of Kelazhur before it gets into an annoying position, but it's much too late. Those tanks are sieged. They are kind of out in the open, which is good for these Zerglings, as they are not, they get full surface area. The Banelings will not connect, and actually Cham will deflect this attack mostly as Kelazhur goes into the main. That spore has not been moved to the edge, unfortunately.
There are a couple of Banelings in the main. That should be a high enough Baneling number, as Kelazhur is going to try to be Liquid Clam over there for a split second. I honestly think the first time that Cham found that army, it was by accident. I think he just wanted to check the high ground, maybe take a look at the zone like watch there, and he's like, whoa, Terran army. And the Terran army was like, whoa, a couple of Banelings in the mix, so that got a little bit chaotic. In the end, it definitely wasn't a big victory for Cham, but as long as he keeps the hatch up, it's good. But that tank right now is in range of at least the mineral patches, so it's going to be very hard. Good target fire there on the Banelings on the right side. I like that safety tank all the way to the back. And Cham is in trouble. He needs a good fight. He needs to spend his money. We need magical Baneling connections here, cats.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult because Kelazhur can't just micro off of creep. He still has the medevacs to jump into. Cham has still not repositioned, I think, the spore in the main, so that is another vulnerable position, and the 4th will indeed go down to those now much better positioned tanks on the side of Kelazhur, hugging walls and using the corners as well to their advantage. It's going to be very difficult for Cham to engage, and so he is going to decide to expand vertically instead.
The infestation pit is going to go down, and that can obviously open the door to Hive and Lurkers. They don't care too much about Marine Tank, whether it's curious minds or not. Lurkers be Lurkers. We are obviously a long way off, but that is truly the only light at the end of the tunnel. I think Kelazhur is going to stim down the ramp one more time and get another quick cancel on this hatch. But as long as we cancel it and don't lose it, I want to say it's not too bad for Cham. We've already lost it before, just please cancel it. And he does.
He will be able to cancel it. The good thing for Cham, if we're gonna look for silver linings, I suppose, is the creep spread towards the south is really, really good. And Kelazhur is now on a mission to start clearing that and take that away from Cham. I mean, as he should. So recognizing what the problem might become, he is already looking to address it.
And don't forget that +2 is about to kick in for all these Marines. We've got 82 Marines on the map at this point, and the Lings and Banes and Hydras will only have +1 armor. That is also a little bit problematic, but I guess if Banelings connect, they'll still be great. This is going to be harder to connect. Look at the target fire there. Diego definitely feeling it here. This has been one of the cleanest games we've seen of him in the entire Latin American region. Like, I feel like he's not making any mistakes. He's just not giving Cham a whole lot to work with. And every single time the Cham is finally getting a couple of units out, he takes a beating again, either at the top side or at the bottom side. I really like the way that Kelazhur is playing this game.
He's playing a great game. It is 6,600 resources lost for Cham versus just 2,400 from Kelazhur. Not looking too hot for the Mexican here. He can still, if he can still find a way to wipe up this army and then transition to lurkers, his hive's almost done. Then this game is still up in the air, but he has to first stop this attack, and this attack looks deadly as deadly gets.
Yep. But we are a bit on creep. There are 30 Banelings out on the map. Cham is actually kind of walking away from his own potential flank. The tanks were a bit exposed, and if he had like 40 Lings jumping on those tanks, maybe. Now instead, everything is going to come in from the left angle, and that is not going to work, I'm afraid. But here we go. This is it. Cham's tournament lives on the line. He needs a great fight. He has a couple of Banelings flanking in, but I'm afraid the number is not high enough. The Baneling count is not high enough. Kelazhur is still standing strong with all of his tanks here. Ready to stim forward one more time, taking this entire fight with a 2 upgrade advantage.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe 1 or 2 more Baneling connections. If you clear the bio, it's doable, but not in a line like this. Surely not. All right. He's going to force a liftoff here, which means the tanks are now exposed. Does Kelazhur have reinforcements? Yeah, there's lots of them. There's a little bit of a string of red that is going to be able to kite back and reinforce, and with that I think that Cham is running low or out of options. He will have to tap out, and Kelazhur will close out with a swift 3-0.